Verse 755. The ego, primarily pure, has been defiled on account of the external passions since the beginningless past. I'll carry on with verse 756 because it seems to follow directly on. As when a garment is cleansed of its dirt, or when gold is removed from its impurities, they are not destroyed but remain as they are. So is the ego freed from its defilements. So the language here is problematic. We've got talk of the ego, and there's one of several footnotes that the translator, Professor Suzuki, has. I'll just read one of them out. The statements so far made here regarding an ego soul, the word that's been translated as Atman or Pudgala, as they stand seem to contradict one another, and some really violate the Buddhist doctrine of non-Atman as far as we know. And we've got quite a lot of verses coming up, and instead of ego soul we've got ego here, so I'm assuming there's a difference. And we've got quite a lot of verses coming up concerning the ego and the skandhas. So as I said, it's problematic. But it shouldn't worry us if we appreciate the spirit of Zen. There's been a lot of terminology in this text, a lot of terminology which I've covered in these videos. And what we need to appreciate is the functional nature of this terminology. We are not creating a system of ideas. As I've mentioned before, in using many of these technical terms, I'm hoping I've been inconsistent. Because we use these terms to come to a realization and an appreciation of our immediate nature. This appreciation, as I said in the very first video, is cosmic in nature. Now, I'm not just being dramatic here. This is what we wake up to. We wake up to some full appreciation of our situation. And this appreciation comes from realization, it comes from insight. So the approach then is to use these terms rather than get upset by them. We look to the immediate experiencing, we see what these terms could be relating to, and then we allow the verse to take us into this realization and deep appreciation. This is what it's about. This is what it's about. So there's no point in getting upset by words, unless these words are uttered in a different spirit. They're not uttered in the spirit of Zen. And there's a case for some of these verses for thinking that this is so. And I'll just have to deal with that when we come to it. In the meantime though, let's give the benefit of the doubt when we can, and assume that they're written in the spirit of Zen. Because Zen can be a little bit awkward, and these verses that are coming up now are nothing if not a little bit awkward. It's to shake us up from any kind of conceptual complacency. So let's go with it. Let's go with it. In the previous verses, we were talking about the mind which is primarily pure. And now we're talking about the ego, which is primarily pure. Now, the first thing we have to appreciate then, that there's a parallel. There's a parallel here between mind and ego. Perhaps there's even an identity. But the thing about mind, the word mind is, it's transcendental. It is beyond thoughts. It's beyond the world. It's beyond identity. This is the nature of our pure awareness. This is the empirical understanding, not a theory, not an idea. This is the practical understanding, the practical realization, which has been explored in the past. The ego, the very word itself, hints at some individuality. So what I'm going to suggest here, that there's some hint in our own individuality, our own apparent individuality, which gives us access to the transcendental mind. Because what's being said of ego here is what's being said of mind in the previous few verses. And I think this is the point. This is the point. That mind can be accessed. Transcendental mind, mind itself, suchness, the Tathagata Garbha, can be accessed. We're not talking about metaphysical concepts, although it sounds like it. We're talking about reality, the reality of the true nature of the awareness which is hearing this. This can be accessed. So this verse is very much like similar verses. It says the ego, primarily pure, has been defiled. But it hasn't. It's been covered up. And this was explored in recent verses to do with notions of purification. Back in verse 751, it was likened to gold among pebbles. So the gold isn't impure, it's just obscured by other pebbles. So this is the nature of purification. It's really obscuration. So when the garment has got dirt in it, the garment itself isn't altered, it's just got dirt in it, and the dirt can be removed. The external passions are the whole dynamic that goes on between the notion of an individual and an external world through the understanding of the senses. So the point here about ego is that we have access to mind itself. Being practical about this, can we access this now? In the previous verse, I asked you to come back to this sensation of a you looking out on the world. And looking out on the world in the sense that it's got nothing to do with you. So though you're looking out onto the world, you're no longer identifying with it. You're very much identifying with this entity looking out onto it. So you're becoming centered where you are. Because where you are is the space for all the experiencing that is going on. And we're making a very slight shift from the experience, from the experiencing, that awareness is aware of, to awareness itself. This is the essence of this being that is looking out. It's the essence of awareness. This awareness holds everything. Now, as you do this exercise, you might notice there are some feelings. Perhaps they're quite pleasant feelings. You can tune into a sense of serenity, which comes from an equanimity inherent in this awareness. And there may be some other mood tones rumbling on. These are residues of the external passions. But we can just let them rumble on and come back to the serenity of this awareness. This serenity of this awareness isn't a suggestion. It's the reality of it. Abide in it. You are awareness, abiding in awareness. This is it. In this serenity, there is no discrimination. And what this means is there is only lovingness. So in this awareness, this capacious awareness, which is space for everything to happen, which is where you are coming from, essentially. It is not determined by anything in the experiencing. So we experience equanimity, we experience serenity. It is the heart of lovingness. It is blissful. So rather than ego, what we've reached here is self. It's a capital S, if we want to put a label on it, which probably violates the meditation somewhat. But I'm going to bring this to a close now anyway. So we needn't get upset about the language. The ego here is that point, that sense of an individual looking out, onto the experiencing, but not getting drawn into it. And from this, we can open up to mind itself. So this is the practical nature, this is the functional nature of Zen and of these verses. We don't get hung up about words. We use words as reminders to come back to the potential to realize the potential of our essence, the essential awareness, where we are coming from.